Good day, everyone. I am Jiselle Lalejo, and I am first reporter. And our topic for today is all about Chapter 7, Wine Sales and Service. In the September 2008 issue of Food and Wine magazine, wine expert Robert M. Parker notes that when when he first published his journal Wine Enthusiast in 1978, there were no wines imported to the United States from Argentina, Australia, Chile, New Zealand, or South Africa, to name a few countries. The Italian or Spanish wines that made into the American market were expensive jug wines. Even California didn't have much of fine wine presence. So, over 30 years, he says wines have gotten better. The achievements in enology, technology, and the culinary world has resulted in radical changes in the ways people make. People make, store, buy, sell, and service and enjoy wines. He cites many examples, including the increased attention to sanitation and temperature control in wine making and storage. Um, the advent of green or organic um, viticulture without the use of fertilizer and pesticides, um, and even the roles of wine rights and critics, feeding a constant flow of information available to the public. The end result is, says Parker, is a worldwide boost in wine's popularity, as well as the boost in prices for the world's best wines. So, the market has created smarter consumers who are willing to pay more for quality and appreciate knowledgeable, enthusiastic services. So, sa tasting wines, that wine can be an extremely complex beverage. It fascinates some people and bewilders others. No matter what your level of wine, understanding, or appreciation, you can read only so much about the subject. The only way to truly learn more is to taste the stuff. Drinking wine and tasting wines are two distinctly different pursuits. And tasting comes first. So, tasting can help you to understand your own preference and why a good wine is good, which can give you pleasure and confidence. So, more important for the restaurant or a bar owner is what the confidence and understanding can do to increase business. So, it can enable you to buy the most suitable wines for your clientele, to develop a wine list. So, and most critical, to train your serving staff about the wines on your list so that they can describe and sell these wines to your customers. So, let's wines to your customer. So, first, we as importante sa mga sa mga restaurant or bar owners na malaman kung anong paano malaman nila kung kagaano kasarap yung wine na binibenta nila. Para kapag may nagtanong ng mga customer kung anong lasa o masarap ba yung wine na binibenta nila, alam na nila kung anong isasagot nila. So, let's learn some wine tasting basics. So, first, when you taste a wine, pour it into a tin, clear glass with a stem. Hold the glass by the foot or the stem, never by the bowl, which would convey the heat of your hand to the wine. So, whenever you taste wines, use the same glass and same amount of wine so that can make valid comparisons. So, comparison tastings or tastings of the same varietal by different producers or the same varietal from different years are terrific ways to learn more about the subtle difference between wines. So, next is tasting a wine really begins with appraising its appearance. Pour a little amount or a small amount, then hold it up to the light or look at it against a white background. Like a white tablecloth, the wine should be clear and bright. A wine that looks cloudy or hazy has a problem. Do not buy it do not buy it and do not serve it. Note that sediment in a bottle of aging wine is not a problem. This will settle out when the bottle is left to set a while. So next is focus on the wine's color. Color will tell you if the wine is light, medium, or full-bodied. Many white wines have a pale, straw color. Young whites, especially those from cooler climates, might have the tint of green. Wines from warmer climates and sweet desserts wines are often a beautiful golden hue. White wines darken, turning brownish as they age. So many think of brown or amber might signal a problem. So, red wines range from purple in a young wine to reddish brown in a mature wine. Too much rust or amber color is warning signal that the wine may have been stored incorrectly or not sealed properly. So oxidation, which occurs when oxygen comes into contact with the wine, can cause this discoloration, a sign of spoilage. Rose wines are pink to pale orange. Too pink or too orange is not good. And again, any touch of amber is a warning. The next step is to smell the wine and to do the most effectively. You must learn to swirl it around inside the wine glass. The best way for a novice to manage this is to keep the glass on the table. Hold the bottom of the stem between your fingers and move the base of the glass around in a small clockwise circle, which will cause the wine inside the bowl to move it a circular manner. 2. You do not have to swirl too hard to get the wines moving around. When you are confident doing this with the glass still sitting on the table, you can pick up the glass and try swirling it. Why swirl? Um, Swirl allows some of the alcohol in the wine to vaporize. So as the alcohol rises, it brings with the scent of the wine. If you dump this, snip 2 glasses of the same wine, one setting still and one just after you have swirled it. The scent will be more intense from the swirled wine. Some people put the hand over the bowl and the wine glass as they swirl in order to hold the aroma inside until they sniff. So, aroma is the term used if the scent is fruity or flowery. It will give you some important clues about the grapes and winemaking method used. The scent of a more complex and mature wine is called its banquet. Banquet may include aroma, but aroma does not include banquet. An essential distinction in learning to describe wines. When sniffing the wine, don't be shy. Put your nose right inside the glass so that the bridge of your nose touch the far side of the glass. Then inhale. Try to describe the fragrance of yourself. A wine's banquet reflects to the change that have slowly taking place inside the bottle. Um, the banquet of a good mature wine is a significant part of the pleasure it gives. So, there are also outdoors to check for vinegar, sulfur, or an inappropriate smell of sherry of Madeira in ordinary table wine. Do not serve such wines. So, finally taste the wine. Take a small sip and roll it over your tongue. Hold it in your mouth for 10 seconds or so. Um, the key of the taste of the wine is what is on your tongue. Your taste buds are arranged so that they detect certain flavors at certain parts. As you taste the wine, will you perceive the sweetness first, then the sourness of acidity, then any bitterness at the back of your that uh, mouth as you swallow the wine. These tastes represent 4 components of the wine structure. A term used to describe the nature of wine apart from its scents and flavors. The components that make up structure are sugar, acid, tannins, um, tannins, alcohol. First, sugar. Sugar is a sweetness it says sense as the wine first enters to your mouth. Next is acid. This is perceived mainly on the sides of your tongue as the tartness or sharpness. Next is tannins. A bitterness or astringency sits on the rear of the tongue. Tannins pucker the mouth as strong tea. Thus, tannin are found mainly in the red wines. Then alcohol. Alcohol has a sweet flavor that enhances any other sweetnesses. Alcohol makes a wine seems around and full, although although if a wine's content is high, it can cause a slight sensation of heat in the mouth. So, the way in which these four components relate to each other determines the balance of the given wine. Balance is the dynamic of the structure, that is the way the components relate. Ideally, the richness created by the sweetness plus alcohol will counterbalance in harshness of the tannin plus acid, creating the impression of harmony. To the degree that this occurs in a wine, we say that the wine is balanced. More than any other factor, balance determines wine quality. So when you first taste a wine, you are trying to find specific elements. The following are some of the common terms and characteristics. First is body. This is the feel of the wine in the mouth. Body comes from the amount of alcohol, sugar, glycerin, or a soluble substance formed during fermentation, and extract from the grapes such as a tannin. A wine is referred to a light or light-bodied if it's a low in one or more the body components. Next is degree of sweetness. Um, if the grape sugar has been entirely consumed during fermentation, um, and none of has been added, a wine will be totally lacking in sweetness or dry. This is an important characteristic for your service to know about each wine on your list, since the most often asked question involve wine dryness. Generally, a dry wine or one with only a little sweetness is preferred with the meal. Um, while a sweet wine is an appropriate beginning with a lighter appetizer or as a finish to a meal. Many Americans, both up carbonated soft drinks, prefer a wine with some sweetness. Next is flavor intensity. This refers to whether a wine is light and delicate in flavor, full and concentrated, or somewhere in between. Again, your service should have this information for each wine on your list. It is important in terms of matching wines with food. Next is tartness acidity. This is a sharp, acid taste like green fruit. In a balanced wine, tartness is a crucial quality. It gives life to the wine. Next is softness. This is the opposite of tartness. The term is also used for an over-aged wine when its tannin is gone. Um, Astringency. A taste that the beginner may mistake for dryness or acidity. Astringency puckers the mouth. You will find it in young red wines that are not quite ready to drink. It comes from the tannin derived from the grape skins and will disappear as wines mature and mellow. Next is mellowness. The opposite of astringency, this term means softened with aged grape. Next is finish. This is the aftertaste. A good wine should have a pleasant aftertaste in keeping with the wine itself. Last is character. Comparisons positive, distinctive taste characteristics that indicate the wine is truly representative of the grape varietals um, from which it was made. As to taste preference, that customers is always right. There are no longer rules about what kind of color wine to drink with type of food. Creating a wine list. Of course, we are suggesting that you include wines as a part of your beverage lineup when it comes to creating a wine list. However, a bar owner should first ask, do I need wine list at all for my establishment? Naturally, we suggest that you include wines in your beverage lineup. Many casual and mid-price bars and restaurants serve only a few house wines by the glass or crave and make a very good profit in this uncomplicated and expensive way. Usually, they offer 4 to 6 wine choices with the familiar names and general appeal. A short enough list to print on a table tent. This simple selection, typical, offered along with an assortment of beer and soft drinks, is very appropriate for certain types of dining situation. If you are going to sell wines by the bottle, you have 4 initial consideration: clientele, concept, cuisine, and price compatibility. So let's examine them individually. First, the bar is clientele will dictate that overall character of the wine list. You can keep in short, simple, and inexpensive. Make it expensive and loaded with prestigious choices, or settle somewhere in between. Will you sell by the bottle, by the craft, by the glass? You have to know your target customers before you can make the basic decision about what they will expect and how much they are willing to pay for it. The concept will set the tone for many critical details. How many of the wine is domestic versus imported, and how strict and choices are. Whether the list is a book, a sheet, or a chalkboard, a table tent, and how it's worded. What type of glass are required, and how extensively the service must be trained. To name a few, concept and cuisine go hand in hand. Consider the restaurant business. If fine French cuisine is served, clearly defined French wines are appropriate. Although a few additional choices will make for a well-rounded and more interesting list. A steakhouse would list mostly red wines, with a few hearty whites and a couple of rose for people who want alternatives. If seafoods is the specialty, you feature white wines and mostly red that are lighter, so as not to overpower lighter types of fish, and yet can go with a salmon. Perhaps Beer from France, or a Pinot Noir from Oregon, a Spanish Roja, or an Italian Montepulciano. A sparkling wine or a two is always appropriate for a special occasion. In a bar, the focus may or may not be on food, but you certainly will serve some food, and the wine selection should complement it. Last is price compatibility, means that the wine choice should suit not only the types of food you will serve but also the other components of concept. The, the average check and the price range of other food and beverage items. If each and every wine by the glass cost $2 more than the most popular mixed drinks or any of the appetizer, Don't be surprised if you don't sell much wine. In restaurant, optimal sales result when the wine costs make up approximately one-fourth of the average check. This does not mean that every wine must fall into a specific price range. You can safely offer wines in several price range. List mapping. Greg Harrington is the founder and winemaker at Jeremy Cellars in Walla Walla, Washington. He is also a master sommelier who has held wine director position with B.R. Guest Restaurant, Wolfgang Puck Fine Dining, and Emerald Legacy Restaurants, to name a few. During his time in the restaurant industry, Harrington sought to make the wine buying process more objective by creating a concept that he calls list mapping to develop a pricing structure for a wine list. So when I hear guests say say a list is expensive, says Harrington, more are referring not to the restaurant markup, but the prices in relation to the restaurant concept and average check. List mapping is the system I use to counter this perception. He used restaurant in the explanation of their system, but the concept would also work for the bar and makes a great deal of sense. Harrington has generously given us a permission to share his system to balancing a wine list by price and style, as that explained in the June 2004 issue of Santi magazine. So, step 1 is develop the average bottle price range. So, begin with the average price of the entries of the menu. Let us use $20 as an example. Multiply the average entry price by 2. This number is $40, represent the lowest price range. Buy the bottle of wines that should dominate the list. Next, add the average price of the entry to this number for the higher price range of the wines that should dominate the list. For the hypothetical restaurant, the book of the wine list should be between the $40 to $60 per bottle range. Of course, the list should have selection lower and higher, but the least 35 to 45% of the selection should be in this range. Also, the majority of the list should be in the sweet spot, which is $20 lower to $20 higher than the calculated range. That allocation would look something like this. Then step 2. Split the list between white and red selection. This is a very subjective calculation which will change with the concept. I try to split the list between 35% wine and 65% red with most of the programs. Seafood's dominant restaurant may be as high 50-50 white to red, while steakhouses may trend toward 25/75 white to red. So step 3. Select each wine type and price, creating a map of the program. I find that the smaller the list, the more important mapping it becomes. As an example, let's use a casual concept restaurant with a 100 bottle wine list and a $20 average entry price. We'll plan to purchase 35 white wines and 65 red wines. This is how I would map out the white wine selection. So, step 4. Select the actual wines from your suppliers. So, note the list mapping forces you to consider the entire list. Make sure that you are also balancing their price selection. In each price category, for example, in the $40 to $60 category, don't select wines that will all sell for $58. List mapping provides the wine buyer with a solid plan and ensures the balance will price list. After initial lists are developed, I provide wine list map for my buyers at each BR guest restaurant. When the restaurant runs out of wine, the buyer may replace it with a selection of the same category, which allows for buyer input and creativity while with adhering to the structure imposed by the list map.